Hi everyone, my name is Akinchita. I worked on this study in Riverside, California, alongside PhD candidate Simran Gorman, which some of you may know, some of you may not know. She's been heavily involved in Jakarta, as well as our PIs, Dr. Roberts and Dr. Montgomery. So I will be covering navigating the intersections, mental health experiences of Punjabi Sikh young adults in Southern California. So the purpose of our study was basically to understand the context of Punjabi Sikh young adults' mental health experiences. Anecdotally, as a community, we know that we might experience different types of stress and face mental health challenges growing up, but as a community, and especially as a Punjabi Sikh community, young adults growing up don't really often talk about their experiences or how they feel about these things. And they definitely don't talk about it openly. It's very kind of hidden behind closed doors because of many things that Nanki had mentioned, like Loki Gange, just how other people will perceive them. So professionally, we really don't know much about these experiences, especially in the context of young adults. And we don't know what the protective factors are, the risk, the consequences, and how to even address them. So we looked at if and how gender, discrimination, social cultural norms, generation, social support, religious coping, all of these factors influence mental health and subjective well-being. The Punjabi Sikh young adult mental health study was formed as actually a part of a larger study where we were looking at Punjabi Asian Indians in an adult context as a whole. The study was guided by a framework that looked at how social cultural factors like the ones mentioned in this slide influence mental health. We wanted to further understand how these issues of power and autonomy influence young adult mental health experiences. So from what we know from the literature is that Punjabi Sikhs in the US are more likely to experience simultaneous multiple layers and forms of oppression. And these often are conflicting layers, which place Punjabi Sikhs in a particularly vulnerable place and position to experience increased stressors and tension without having much access to acceptable support or awareness to deal with these issues. We also know that for a number of different reasons, including the model minority myth, as Nanki mentioned, the larger professional community is less likely to be aware of these intersectional challenges, and therefore the mental health challenges among Punjabi Sikhs are less likely to be detected, and furthermore, even less likely to be treated. So we did a mixed method studies. So there was two phases, which I'll go into in the next slide, but we focused it from a CBPR approach, which is known in academia as community-based participatory research. So this research was done in collaboration from the ground up between the Punjabi Sikh community of Riverside and our academic partners at Loma University. So as the community members, we were involved in the study in every aspect of it, from the design to the analysis. So our basically criteria was young adult inclusion, where that you had to be from ages 18 to 25 and self-identify as Punjabi and be proficient in either English or Punjabi. So we collected data in two phases, in the qualitative phase and the quantitative phase. For recruitment, we used snowball technique, and it was a convenience sample. In the first phase, we talked to individuals to get a better understanding of their experiences in order to make a survey. We did this so that we made sure the survey was well informed and we were able to capture everything that everyone was talking about. In the first phase, we designed an interview guide, identified key informants, and held semi-structured interviews, and then conducted focus groups to validate the major themes after we were hearing multiple themes that were arising from interviews. The key informant included young adults from different walks and stages of life. For example, some were students while some were not. Some were working, some were community members while some were community activists. Some lived at home, some did not live at home. Many of them were born here, but we also tried to identify individuals that were born in India or other countries. Some were more engaged with the Gurdwara and some of them were not. But they did identify feeling more spiritual In the second phase, we collected surveys at the Gurdwara and during at-home visits, and the survey was available to all participants in either English or Punjabi. So here's just kind of a breakdown of the first phase. So as you can see, we held 8 interviews, and we held 3 focus groups with 18 individuals. So participant young adult Punjabi 6 were on average 21 years of age, lived in the US for an average of also 21 years. They were highly educated. 88% of our sample size had a bachelor's degree or higher. No one was married, and they did not have any children, and mostly they were born in the US with 80% of the sample. During the next phase, we collected 99 surveys with young adults. The average age was about 22 years, and they lived in the US for about 17. We had 84 individuals who took the survey in English and about 15 in Punjabi. 60% of our sample was born in the US, and 97% were not married. This sample, again, was highly educated, with 48% graduating from college, and 22% either had some college or they were currently college students. So here we go into the survey findings. So the skills that we use to address depression and anxiety depression and anxiety symptomology are used in clinical settings. So they were used in doctors' offices and hospitals, and they are used in these settings to screen for these things. If these skills were not readily available in Punjabi, we actually translated them using a standard back and forth procedure to Punjabi. So let's take a look. Overall, our young adults had mild to moderate anxiety with a mean of 6.09 and a standard deviation of 5.54. So for individuals that are not familiar with the GAD-7, that's what we use for anxiety. It has a hard cutoff at 5, 10, 15, 20, and those are kind of listed there. So you can see about 23% of our sample had moderate anxiety, but 17% had severe. And now if we take a look into depression, our mean was 6.02 with a standard deviation of a 5.69. 22.2% of our sample size had moderate depression, and 13.8% had severe depression. So for the next part of it, I'm going to go into kind of the qualitative results. Our qualitative results pointed to 5 main themes that highlighted intersectional challenges related to Punjabi young adult experience, which kind of showed they value their roots, but they're kind of identifying more with American values, which is causing them to live this dual life. That's kind of how we worded it. So a lot of our young adults were telling us that they feel like they're living these 2 separate lives. One at home so that they can kind of get along with their parents, get along with the community, and one outside so that they can fit into the dominant culture. So these are our 5 themes, and I'm going to kind of talk about them with a few quotes that I have pulled up. So I'll start with the first one, the Punjabi cultural expectations, which differ by gender. I think from what these are direct quotes that our participants told us, young adults, once again. I think from what I've seen, like in my household and extended family, is that it's okay for men to drink, but it's very shameful and inappropriate for women to drink. And that's definitely not just the men who believe that. This was a female focus group participant. Punjabi families are very different. And then they're like, girls should be a certain way and guys should be a certain way. Like, okay, girls shouldn't be out until this time or do this rather than the guy. Like, I don't know. There's still a stigma attached to being a girl. This was a female key informant. There was a lot of, as Nanki was mentioning, I don't know. I don't really know if I resonate with this. I don't know if I believe this is correct, but this is just the way it is. And this is kind of going back into this dual life that these individuals are living. So our second theme, intergenerational conflicts between Punjabi and American social cultural values. All our adults are immigrants, and we feel like they don't understand living here. And the adults think we don't have enough experience, so there's always conflicts. Like where, no, you're wrong, you don't know about America, and they're like, no, you're wrong because you don't have this experience. This was from a female key informant. Dating for me, Punjabi or non-Punjabi, will get me kicked out, and sexual education, none. It's like, you'll find out everything after marriage. You're all on your own. And this actually came from a male. Into our third theme, intergenerational communication barriers. I think it's just like sometimes it's made me lie when I shouldn't be lying. It's like over things like, going places or like, and I also think it's kind of like, it doesn't let you have this open relationship with your family, that you should be able to have this open relationship. This was from a female KI. There have always been times where it's like, I really want to do that, or do I, because I know they'll say no. Do I just lie about it, or do I ask and then resent them after? This was from a male focus group participant. Going into our fourth theme, mental health and risk behavior consequences. I feel like there's so many people I need to make happy that sometimes I forget I can't make other people happy. If I'm not happy and it's just really stressful. This was from a female focus group participant. But having to be good at multiple things, and the pressure has always been there. So I've kind of always like shut down so I can just get away from it all and not have to hear anything anymore. This was from a female focus group participant. So there's a lot of pressure, which kind of led me to be a rebel. A little rebellion in high school, which kind of led me to not such a great experience senior year. Because everyone expected me to be like my older brother, and he was always getting good grades in AP classes. Not just the family, even like the professors that had him in the year before. Were like, your brother was like this, so I'm glad you're in our class. So I became a rebel. I didn't have the best grades. This was from a male focus group participant. And another important theme that we felt the need to highlight was the resulting resilience and strength because of all these experiences. So some quotes surrounding that were, given the fact that I still had a double identity culture or whatnot, I still feel that I did have some sort of identity that was something that I could say that I'm a part of. And that's always comforting to know you have a background, you have a culture, you have a family, and a community that is behind you. This was from a male focus group participant. I think being Indian, you face a lot of issues, not only in your house, but within your community, your extended family. Everyone has an opinion about everything, and I think just the resiliency part of it, saying like, no, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm going to do, whether you like it or not. This is from a female focus group participant. An additional thing that a lot of these individuals spoke about was that they felt like they were very silently caught in between multiple social cultural roles, which caused a lot of strained relationships with their families, with their parents, with the extended family members. They had a lot of internal and external tensions. And of course, like we've mentioned, mental health stressors. So we did this part of the study first, and then we used what I showed you earlier to kind of confirm that, and it is showing. Look at our sample size. We have a lot of people that have mild to moderate anxiety, mild to moderate depression. But they also felt like these challenges were making them stronger. They were all thankful for growing up in a multicultural fashion, which they felt like contributed to their identity grounding, empowerment, tolerance, and feeling like a larger community. So now I'm going to go into some specifics with some of the questions that we mentioned. We use a scale to measure religious coping, and you can kind of see the breakdown. So young adults largely do turn to God when they're dealing with stressful situations and working through their problems. So Sikhi really could be a central feature in any future supportive efforts, and further shows what it is, how much of a loss it is when young adults are disengaging from the Sikh community, or they're basically losing this protective factor. So this question was asking, dealing with problems, I look to God for strength, support, and guidance in crisis. Our next question asks, dealing with problems, life is part of a larger spiritual force. So as you can see, the distribution, a lot of them say yes, a great deal, quite a bit, somewhat. Dealing with problems, I work together with God as partners to get through hard times. Dealing with problems, I feel that stressful situations are God's way of punishing me for my sins or lack of spirituality. So this is actually measuring negative religious coping, so they don't view God as something that's negative. So many of our participants pick not at all, almost half of them. Dealing with problems, I wonder whether God has abandoned me. Once again, about 70 participants said not at all. So we also asked about stress, and I'm going to show you the distribution for one of the questions. In the last month, how often have you felt that difficulties were piling up so high that you could not overcome them? So a large part of our sample said sometimes, fairly often, and very often. Now I'm going to go into the anxiety-related questions. I'm going to kind of move through this quickly because I'm probably coming up at my time. Yep, 5 minutes. Bothered by, feeling nervous, anxious, or on the edge. You can see the distribution. Bothered by not being able to stop or control worrying. Bothered by worrying too much about different things. Bothered by trouble relaxing. This is the GAD-7, so there's going to be 7 questions. Bothered by becoming easily annoyed or irritable. Bothered by feeling afraid as if something awful might happen. Bothered by being so restless that it's hard to sit still. These are the questions that we asked for depression. This was the PHQ-9, so there's going to be 9 separate questions. Bothered by little interest or pleasure in doing things. Feeling down, depressed, or hopeless. Trouble falling asleep or staying asleep or sleeping too much. Feeling tired or having little energy. Poor appetite or overeating. Feeling bad about yourself or that you are a failure or have let yourself or family down. Trouble concentrating on things. Moving or speaking so slowly that other people have noticed. Thoughts that you would be better off dead or hurting yourself in some way. So I just really kind of wanted to use this time for a discussion. Punjabi Sikh youth really struggle during this time, which is kind of a big and important time for them. It's a big time for their identity development, their sense of belonging, their grounding, and being a part of the Sikh community. Our participants felt that it actually made all these things worse. It was harder to get through. It was just, they're just having a hard time, specifically due to gender-based double standards experienced, intergenerational social cultural value conflicts, and communication barriers. The youth felt like that while they were trying to grow up, while that was in middle school and high school and in college, they didn't really have adults in their life that they could trust with these issues. They couldn't trust them with their emotions or just kind of share these experiences that they were going through and have an open and honest communication. So they often had to rely on their friends, most of which were non-Punjabis, and they turned to them for advice and support. Because they felt that being a part of the Sikh community made their life harder and made their mental health worse, one of their main coping strategies was to distance themselves from the community and disengage. They felt this was protective, and it helped them benefit greatly from disengaging. This is really a true loss for the community and for the youth, because in the end, our young adults also said that they felt that being ultimately part of a larger community was protective. So during that time, we kind of felt that it was important and that they could use people to support them, people from the community, people that were, Punjabi, they understand, because there's so many people that are going through the same things. This is the 3rd time I've given this presentation in this context, and after every presentation, someone's come up to me and said, you really made me realize that I'm not going through this alone. And, some of these people still reach out to me like, can I talk to you? Are you there for us? Or the people that were involved in the study. Yes, that's amazing to know that you're not alone, but what are we doing to help mitigate this? Based on our religious coping questionnaire that I showed you all, it shows that young adults, for the most part, actually are turning to their relationship with God in dealing with stressful situations and coping with these issues and working through this problem. So like I said earlier, Sikhi could be the central feature of our future, to help support these young adults. This also highlights how much of a protective buffer young adults lose when they disengage from Sikhi and cope with mental health to protect themselves and the community. Based on our depression and anxiety findings, you can see that there's a large section of young adults that are struggling, and the community could, once again, make it easier. I have a minute. So some of the things that we kind of felt would be helpful is organizations like Jagada. Of course, they're helping, engage our young adults for the people that have access to these resources. But what about the individuals that don't? What do we do for them? How do we help them mitigate their mental health stressors? And that's just something I want everyone to kind of think about. I'm going to move on to my next slide with my 1 minute. As a community, viewing the Punjabi community as a model community, Healthcare professionals may overlook critical opportunities for discussion and early intervention. Mental health stigma exists not only in the American culture, but it also exists in the Punjabi and Sikh culture. But there's also this pressure from everyone, whether that's, do you want me to stop or can I keep going? Okay. There's also this pressure to be a model minority in America and within the Sikh community itself, right? We always have people saying like, so-and-so's daughter did this, so-and-so's son did this, why aren't you doing this? Or why are we doing this? Or like, how can we improve? So when we asked young adults themselves, what do they think that could help them right now and what would have helped them growing up, they all responded with having an open relationship with their parents and other older elders in the community. This included, most of the highlights were that, you know, we wish we could just be ourselves around our parents. We wish we could tell them who we really are. We wish we didn't have to like live this dual life where we're one way at home and one way kind of, you know, outside. They also said that they wanted to be honest. They wanted to speak up with one another in a productive two-way conversation, not like, this is just how it is in our culture. This is just how it has to be. Where both sides attempted to better understand one another, participants suggested that the only way to a successful intervention would include working directly with the families to improve communication skills and raise an awareness of mental health coping skills. With that, thank you everyone for listening and allowing me to be here to present our work.